gestures that you know, holding home if you go, trusting home if you travel far and wide, carrying home deep inside, deep inside.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madeleine Snow, the stage director of Heart Melodies, and I'm here with the brilliant composer of the songs in this program, Ricky Ian Gordon.
Hi,
Ricky,
everybody.
Ricky, we're so grateful to have you join us for this project and have brought your music back to Eastman after a recent performance of your opera, The Tibetan Book of the Dead, a couple of seasons ago. And it's been such a joy and a gift to bring these incredible songs in Heart Melodies to the Eastman stage and now the screen.
Thank you.
So, first, Ricky, I would love to know what has influenced your work as a composer and what kind of stories are you inspired to tell?
What has influenced my work as a composer? Well, all what has influenced my work as a composer is all the art I love. And when I say that, I mean all the foreign movies, all the great art I've looked at my whole life, all the poetry, and of course, all the great music I've listened to. Um, I feel like I am an amalgamation or a trash can of everything I've ever loved. And my impulse to make what I make is directly related to my loving the world that I make what I make in. Do you know what I mean? I the world of culture, the world of the arts. It's where I've always been. It's where I've always belonged, and I'm a very sort of democratic uh, artist in terms of what I take my influences from. Like some composers just listen to music. Um, I really like all forms of art, and I feel like, and that does affect the stories I want to tell, because the stories I want to tell are stories that feel important to me, that feel like they need to be told. Um, I don't really believe in a sort of weak impetus. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I really have to need to write something, or I have to need to tell the story, or I have to feel like the story needs to be told. Um, you know, I guess I don't take any of it casually. Do you know what I mean? I just have always had this, I want to change the world with what I do, whatever that means. That is a big fire in me. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so if you look at this, the stories I've told, like Grapes of Wrath, nobody needs to ask why that story needs to be told. It needs to be told because it's always resonant and it's always happening. There's always a refugee crisis. People are always disenfranchised by their governments. There's dishonesty, there's passing the buck, and there's always poor people who only help each other because no one helps them. Um, my opera 27, I told that story because among other things, gay marriage it was all, the zeitgeist was all about gay marriage, and I wanted to tell that story because it's the most beautiful gay marriage of the 20th century, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and then, just that. I mean, the piece I did at Eastman when they did my Tibetan Book of the Dead, I had to do that because my lover was dying of AIDS and wanted to die as a Buddhist. He wanted me to learn the teachings, so by setting them to music, I was both learning the teachings and I was creating an opera for him. So there is an intensity for me about creating, you know.
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
stories, it's all about necessity.
Yes, so these stories are very powerful and personal. So,
Mm.
what is it about poetry as a medium that inspires you to set this text to music?
Because for one thing, poets by nature have to live in the most interior world. I mean, poetry is born of the deepest place in the human being, and it is of no value and no resonance unless you trust, you as the reader, you as the audience, that it is coming from the deepest possible place. And you know that when you read a great poem. It stirs your insides in a way almost nothing else does. And so for me, obviously, the combination of music and words, I mean, I also believe music comes from this deep subconscious place. I mean, who knows where the notes come from? And even when you think you're manipulating them, you still like, I don't know where this came from. I mean, so and at various points in my life when I've been my at my lowest ebb, I've sought out poets instinctively because I felt like they live where I was. Do you know what I mean? Um, so, yeah, and I also feel like many of the most intelligent people that ever lived were poets or were drawn to poetry. And um, I've always had a natural insecurity about my own native intelligence. And so I have a healthy impulse to surround myself with smart people or to make sure that I surround myself with smart people. And then when I think their work is brilliant, I internalize it almost the way you would enter information into your hard drive. I feel like by entering the the poetry of great poets into my hard drive, it's one way of enriching myself. It's just like when I was growing up, I always had I always had ADD, right? And ADHD, I always had trouble concentrating. And so, for my sister Susan could read like 2 books a day. And I could never do that. But I learned early on that there are, and I do read, but I'm slower than a lot of people. But I learned early on that there are ways of consuming information that is very valuable for people like me. For example, I walk around my lake every day, right? We're upstate on a little lake, Wolf Lake. And I download things like all the Ibsen plays. There's all kinds of live performances of plays. There are lectures, poetry readings, um, books on tape. One of my best friends, Don Katz, is the CEO of Audible.com. It's his company.
Oh,
So
wow.
I listen to a lot of books. I listen because that's how I take in a lot of information. And I've always, my whole life, like since I was a little boy, I mean, I was like encyclopedic when it came to, I was obsessed with foreign films. So, I knew all of Bergman and Mizoguchi and Truffaut and Ozu and Antonioni and Fellini, and you know what I mean? And so it is, it's an artist's responsibility to feed the flame that lives inside of them. And you have to feed it whatever way you can. And I suppose for me, I've had to make peace with and use of my limitations. These being, you know, and oddly, I have read. I mean, I've read a lot, and I've read a lot of books, but I just am slow. So in terms of what I need to take in, I take it in from everywhere. You know, even just in the past few nights, Kevin and I, ever since Kevin's my partner, and ever since the pandemic started, like basically March 12th when we came up here, I instituted something called movie night, which means every other night is one of our nights, and you get to pick a movie, and it's inviolable. The other person doesn't say, I'm not in the mood for that, or that's what we're watching, and then so we've watched, you know, both of us seem to have taken it seriously, and we're watching all of Bresson and all of Bergman and all of Truffaut, and just watching great films. Even all these old Hitchcock movies I didn't know. Like, I didn't know, you know, Notorious. So anyway, but also, I'm really interested in painting, right? So there are all these. They just brought this a documentary. I think it's from the '60s. It's called Painters Painting. It's a fantastic documentary about the New York School of Abstract Expressionism, and there's a new documentary called The New York School. So I've been watching those, and a documentary about Alice Neal, and I mean, you know, and that's what I try to teach young artists of any form, writers, singers. Your job is to feed the flame. And I always say the further out you go, the more eclectic you are in terms of your tastes, the deeper you reach. You know, you have to reach beyond Google. Google cannot be your main source of information because it'll be this deep. That's, you know, and my whole life, I didn't have Google, for one thing, but the other thing is, it's obsession that took me from one thing to another. Like, I would become interested in something and then feel like I needed to know everything about it, right? And that's what moved me from thing to thing. You know, Kevin and I just watched The Crown, and now I'm completely obsessed with the royal family, from highfalutin to lowfalutin. Like, I need to see every film of Princess Diana, and but that's how I've always learned. That's how I've fed the flame.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of those sources of inspiration. And I love the movie tradition that you've instituted with your partner.
It's fantastic. It's so great. Tonight we're going to finish. We started, you know, Ingmar Bergman made a great trilogy about the presence of, or the absence of, God. And it's 3 movies. It's The Silence, Through a Glass Darkly, and Winter Light. And we watched Through a Glass Darkly and Winter Light, so tonight we're going to see The Silence. But they're astounding works of art. Do you know what I mean? They're so astounding. You know, and I can't wait. Like, now we're gonna do a bunch of Godard. Like, Kevin's never seen Vivre sa vie, and I get really excited about it, because I'll tell you something. If it wasn't instituted this way, if it wasn't inviolable, I would always bend to Kevin's need for entertainment, right? So like, he might say, "Oh, I'm not in the mood for subtitles tonight," or "That sounds a little heavy tonight," and I might do the same thing. Like, he might ask me about a movie, and I would say, like, "I thought that was so boring," but I'm not allowed to, and neither is he. And so I end up seeing all these movies I saw that I might have said were boring, but then I see them, and it's like they're so fresh to me, and it's just great. It's just, that we have, in that way, we've really sort of used this incredibly strange and difficult time. I mean, we're
Yeah.
both working, and I have been writing and creating, but it's a strange time on every
Yeah,
level.
absolutely. So, in the context of the ongoing pandemic, our voices at Eastman has been quite a thrilling way of collaborating and making theater, and we're so grateful that you've shared with us such meaningful material for Heart Melodies. So, what interested you in working on this project at Eastman?
Um, well, first of all, I love Eastman. I mean, it definitely it begins with when Stephen Daigle approached me about doing Tibetan Book of the Dead, which uh, he heard about it through. I was down in in judging a competition in that American Song Competition, and I talked about it down there, and Stephen heard about it. I'm trying to think. I the pianist, who who was down there judging with me and playing. His name just escaped me. This is terrible. But anyway, so I Wilson Sutherland. That's it.
Oh,
Wilson
yes.
Sutherland. Yeah. So Wilson Sutherland was with me in Savannah, Georgia, and he just asked me about. He somehow knew about Tibetan Book of the Dead, and you guys, Eastman was looking for smaller pieces. So Stephen called me one day about Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I was both excited and nervous because really that piece was born in such a cocoon of intensity. I just didn't know what it would be like to revisit it. I don't think I even know. I didn't know. I don't even know if I even trusted its fluency. It was born out of such a painful time, and but I was game, and I said absolutely, go to town, use it, and I got them all the materials, and then Stephen did the most thoughtful, brilliant production. It was truly remarkable. It was such a moving thing for me to have my work brought to life again, and in such a thoughtful, deep, considered way. He really made the piece work. By the way, much more than the original production, where I felt like I liked the director, but I didn't think he had any handle on the piece or what it meant. And I thought Stephen was so judicious about what kind of iconography he used, it relating to the world of the Tibetan book, but then how he rooted it in contemporary society. I couldn't have dreamed of a more brilliant production. So obviously I left Eastman at that time, and I participated a lot. I did master classes. I talked a lot about the piece. I spoke before each performance. So when Stephen approached me again, I was like, I'll do anything at Eastman. I mean, that was a really, really great experience. I mean, I went to Carnegie Mellon University. They haven't asked me to do anything that is of any interest, you know what I mean, including regarding my work. So this was really, really a gift. So he said he wanted me to pick a group of songs, and my only regret is I wish it was a 4-hour program, because I really picked
I do too.
a lot of songs. I picked a lot of songs, and it was interesting to me that somehow he narrowed it down. You guys narrowed it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, which I thought was very well done. You know what I mean? But I feel like we have to do part 2, 3, and 4, because I feel like they would all be good songs for you guys to dramatize and work on. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be at
one
Eastman
day
now forever. I'm gonna work with you guys. Also, I have my friend Nicole Cabell teaches there now.
Yes,
right?
she does.
And Tony Griffey. I mean, I just like Eastman. I like Eastman. Also, one of my best friends and a very well-known poet, Marie Howe, is from Rochester. So
wow.
that is important to me. And then Marie's sister came and sat next to me for the opening night of Tibetan Book. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
all good.
wonderful.
It's all good. Yeah, I was. I didn't hesitate for a second. I just said yes.
Yeah, that's great. And it's been really exciting to see how the incredible singers in the cast connected with your music and how it resonates in 2020. So, how do you think that the songs in this program connect with the world in which we live?
Because the world hasn't changed that much. I mean, all the songs you've picked are in some way or another. They're about either transcendence or the need for transcendence. They're about disenfranchisement, right? They're about people living in the margins. Um, they're about finding joy in unusual places. They are about people in the corners and on the margins, and um, which is basically what I write about, right? So what has changed? I mean, everything is the same or worse. I mean, that's what I think is so remarkable. Is though I live with enormous hope, I think this has been a really dark passage for our country, and I think it continues to be. I really do. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like when I read the newspaper, which I read compulsively lately, I can feel hopeless. Do you know what I mean? And music, poetry, art, what you're doing, what I'm doing, that's what gives me hope. Even though I despair that half the country voted for a president who was in the White House for 4 years and never probably even mentioned the word art or culture. And for if it was another 4 years, probably all art and culture in the country would just be wiped out because that's probably what So anyway, not to go too far into that, but that is so I feel the need for what we do is even greater because if other people are like me and survive on I mean, the a word art is a hard, encrusted word to use, but I know you know what I mean. Um, the things that make you feel connected to the world, connected to other people, connected to the birds and to the sea and to trees. That is what interests me. I am looking for a deep connection, and that's what I feel like each of those songs that you chose strives for.
Yeah, thank you for that. And in the world of opera, new work is a vital part of the art form. So, what do you hope that the future of contemporary opera looks like?
First of all, I hope the future, what it looks like, is this like just Ricky Ian Gordon operas happening everywhere in the world. That's part one.
I hope so
Uh,
too.
with like 10 new commissions. I love writing opera. Um, but I also hope that what it looks like in the world is vital. That there's enormous excitement around opera and new works and that it is. I hope that the need for opera increases triple fold so that when we all come back to the art form, it'll be impossible to buy a ticket and every opera house in the world will be sold out and it'll become such a viable art form that all the people with money will be pouring money into opera and the art form. And whenever a composer like me creates a piece, no one will be talking about limitations anymore. They'll just be talking about, yeah, it's okay, use as big an orchestra as you want. You want a chorus? Fine. 3 acts? Great. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to see opera explode and be loved and vital again because it never left that position in my heart. The word opera is the most exciting and resonant word in the English language, in any language for me. It's literally the word changed my life when I discovered it as a little boy. And it's funny, I do numerology and I've done numbers on the word opera to try to figure out why does that word have such power over me. Um, but it just does. It just does. And so yeah, that's what I would like it to look like when we all come back. Incredibly vital. Opera is basically all art forms coming together to make, as far as I'm concerned, the most powerful art form. When opera works, it is poetry, it is music, it is cinema, it is theater, it is a play, it is everything, it is a symphony, it's everything an art form can be. And by the way, it's not always that, but if you have one great experience at the opera, it's like they say when you start to meditate, often you'll have one God experience. And that experience will be so powerful, it will keep you on the path for the rest of your life. You may be chasing after that experience for the rest of your life, hoping for another one. But even if you don't have it, you will still stay on the course because of the power of that experience. If you see one opera that really changes you, that really shifts your DNA, you'll probably always be obsessed with opera.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's very addictive.
Yeah, there's
right?
nothing quite like all of those art forms colliding into this beautiful synthesis of collaboration and human connection.
Incredible. And you should only know what it's like to write it, because when you write it and you're alone in your room for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then suddenly you're in a room and there might be 100 people working on this piece, and it's because you spent that time alone in your room. It's the enormity of the community you can create when you write opera is pretty exciting and astounding. And I've been writing a lot of little pieces lately, smaller pieces, because of the exigencies of the opera world. And that is also very deep and exciting too. It's just, I want to see it be really vital, and I want to be really vital inside of it. I want to be a very important part of the new opera world post-pandemic.
Yes, I hope so very much too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky, for your time, your talent, and your music. And we hope to be able to collaborate with you again in the future. And I wish you a happy and healthy holiday season.
Thank you so much. You too. And by the way, yes, we will collaborate again.